why did you sign on to the letter to Iran, and why are you circumventing the power of the president there?
And what was the last part?
Circumventing the power of the president.
The reason I signed the letter is I have been for and continue to be for a negotiated settlement. I don't want another war over there. We got plenty of war going on and we don't need another one. We also don't need Iran to have a nuclear weapon either. So it is something that we need to do everything we can to try to prevent them from. I have been in favor of negotiations and still am in favor of them. I voted for the legislative sanctions on Iran to try to get Iran to come to the negotiating table. I think the sanctions have largely brought them, because of the punitive nature of the sanctions, have brought them to the negotiating table. I'm also, though, a constitutionalist, and the Constitution says that the legislature writes the laws, the president executes the laws. The president does have some freedom to make agreements with other countries, but I don't think he can make an agreement with another country that undoes a law. So the sanctions have been passed by Congress. For them to be undone, we have to do it. Part of the reason to sign on the letter is I don't think the president's been quite understanding some of these things. On healthcare, he's amended the law without asking the legislature. On immigration law, he's amended the law without asking the legislature. On war, frankly, when President Obama ran, this is actually something I agreed with him. In 2007, he said no president should unilaterally go to war without the authority of Congress. And that's what the Constitution says. And yet we've now been at war for 8 months and the president, we haven't had a vote in Congress. So when it comes to Iran and he's saying, oh, I'm going to the UN, I think it's not us circumventing him, it's him trying to circumvent us. Now there can be differences of opinions. He might have a difference of opinion if he were here. But what I would say is that when Madison talked about the separation, the co-equal branches of government, he said we would pit ambition against ambition, and that the ambition of Congress to keep their power would keep in check the ambition of the president to take power, and vice versa. So I see this as a check and a balance, not a usurping or a taking of his power, but that the legislation and the sanctions were passed by Congress. He needs to come to us, and it's really been his failure as a president is that he hasn't tried hard enough to come to Congress and convince Congress that what he's doing is good. I've also said that I signed on to the letter because I think it does give him a position, or more of a position of negotiating from a position of strength, because he can look at the Iranians and say, look, Congress is not going to vote for any old agreement. It's going to have to be a better agreement. So if Iran says we're going to still have to keep 10,000 centrifuges, we're worried that they could quickly have a breakout period into making nuclear weapons. Maybe he says, well, I can't sign the agreement because Congress won't approve it, and they say, okay, we'll do 5,000 or whatever the number is. Maybe that gives him more leverage to bring them down. But people can disagree. But the only thing I would like to get across, whether you agree or disagree with me, is I don't want war. I mean, I'm going to do everything in my capacity to keep us from going back to war in the Middle East.